Unit 19. Part 1.
Do you like learning history?
Yes, history is something that interests me a lot. I like to read books, comics, and articles about my country's history. Moreover, I think it is great fun to watch movies and TV miniseries set in ancient Korea.
Do you think learning history is important?
I think that it is important to learn history, especially the history of our country. By studying Korean history, we're studying about the culture of our people and our identity as members of Korean society. Furthermore, history teaches us the mistakes of our ancestors so that we can learn from them.
Have you read any articles or books related to history recently?
Yes, I recently read an article about the life of a Korean independence activist. It covered various aspects of his life and the major achievements he made. It was quite interesting to me because the article contained many details of his life that I didn't know before.
Do you like historical films?
Sure, they are my favorite kinds of movies. More specifically, I love the ones that feature great battles. There are several brilliant generals in Korean history who won seemingly impossible victories. So, movies about these battles are really spectacular and entertaining to watch.
What do you do to learn the history of your country?
Mostly, I learn Korean history through web searches. When I want to know more about specific periods or historical figures, I look for reliable online sources. There is an excellent blog about Korean history that is maintained by a college professor, and I often find relevant information there.
What can we do to encourage interest in history amongst children?
Well, we could try to make more comics and animated movies set in historical periods. Most children are interested in these types of media, so they will surely want to read and watch them. If done correctly, I think they could be quite entertaining as well as educational.
Do you visit history museums often?
I certainly do visit them frequently. Since I love to see artifacts and natural objects from the Goryeo period, I head to museums when I have free time on weekends. Because several history museums in my area hold regular exhibitions of such artifacts, they are the ones I visit most often.
What can students learn by visiting museums?
I think students learn to understand and appreciate history when they go to museums. For example, it is one thing to read about the ingenuity of ancient tools and other cultural objects. However, it is quite another to actually see these relics with one's own eyes. In my opinion, students need to visit museums to realize the importance of their history.
Part 2.
There are many traditions in Korea, but the first that comes to mind is celebrating Chuseok. It is the biggest annual holiday in Korea. During this holiday, people perform rituals and visit ancestral graves to honor their ancestors. Historical records show that Koreans have been celebrating this holiday since at least the 7th century. This makes Chuseok one of the oldest Korean traditions. However, the exact date of the first Chuseok celebration remains a mystery. Chuseok is my favorite Korean tradition for several reasons. The most important is that it gives me the opportunity to see all of my relatives. We all live far apart now, so we don't have many chances to see one another. But we can all meet during Chuseok. It's always great to see our extended family. It is also a great time to enjoy traditional Korean foods. There are several items that are usually only made for Chuseok. This includes a rice cake called songpyeon. They are filled with a special honey and sesame filling, and they're the best things ever. Just thinking about them makes my mouth water.
Part 3.
How are traditions different today than they were in the past?
First, most holiday rituals are becoming simpler and briefer. For example, ceremonies for the Korean Thanksgiving holiday, Chuseok, previously lasted 3 days, and preparations began well in advance. However, they are now simpler and usually take 1 day. Some people don't even do that. They use the holiday to travel abroad instead. Second, our traditional outfit, the hanbok, has also undergone changes. Today, the hanbok is not regarded as an everyday outfit. We now only wear it for special occasions, like weddings and funerals.
What do you think about traditions disappearing?
I know that many people have different opinions about disappearing traditions, but I have mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, preserving our heritage is important. We should ensure that traditional songs, stories, and activities do not disappear. Conversely, some traditions do not really fit modern society, so it's natural to lose them and develop new traditions. For instance, traditional ceremonies and ancestral rituals in Korea are expensive and time-consuming. Therefore, people choose to simplify them. This seems reasonable and inevitable.
Part 2.
I'd like to talk about Gyeongbok Palace, which is the most memorable historic building I've visited. Gyeongbok Palace was built in the 1300s and remained the Chosun dynasty's main royal palace until Japanese invaders burned it to the ground in the late 16th century. It remained in ruins until it was restored 300 years later. Since it's not far from my house, I visit the palace at least once a month. However, when the weather's great, I go every weekend. I am always awed by the palace complex's beauty. It is breathtakingly beautiful since it was constructed on a grand scale to show the majesty and dignity of the king. In fact, it contains more than 7,700 rooms. However, some of the most impressive elements are the hete carved onto the palace's stone and wood front walls. These mythical lion-unicorn hybrids were thought to offer protection from disasters such as fires. Whenever I visit the palace, it gives me some odd feelings. For one, when I went wearing a traditional Korean outfit, a hanbok, I felt like a member of the ancient royal family. Seeing the intricate construction also made me think about how advanced the builders were. Even without modern tools, including nails, they built a sturdy, magnificent palace.
Part 3.
What do people think when they see historic buildings?
First, people are astonished by the beauty and intricate design of historic buildings when they see them. This is because many old buildings are exquisitely decorated. People who see them are often amazed that people could build these beautiful, elaborate structures so long ago. Second, they probably think about the background of the structure and all the historic things that probably happened there. For example, when people see Gyeongbok Palace in Korea, they probably think of stories they've heard about the imperial family that once lived there.
Are people in your country interested in history?
Individual interests differ from person to person, but I think most Korean people are very interested in history. That's because history lessons begin early on in Korean schools and continue through all educational levels. Students are taught the importance of their history and become proud of their country at a very young age. In addition, many Korean television programs and movies portray fictional stories using real historical figures or periods. These are very popular with the general public. I guess that shows how interested in history Korean people are.